Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about Blanton's Single Barrel Bourbon and the man who inspired this brand, Colonel Albert Bacon Blanton's. As always, my name is Brian Donnelly. The Spirits Educator channel is a digital education platform and trade resource for the distilled spirits industry. My aim is to provide in-depth spirits information, brand transparency, and category education for distributor sales teams, service industry and hospitality members, and motivated enthusiasts. I currently work for a major wine and spirits distributor, but my work here on the Spirits Educator is completely unaffiliated with my current employer. You can find my Blanton's article on my website, and I'll include a link below in the description. Today I'm going to be referencing a script that I wrote so I can communicate all this information accurately. First of all, who was Blanton? Colonel Albert Bacon Blanton was born in 1881 on a Kentucky farm not far from the present-day Buffalo Trace Distillery. In 1897, at the age of just 16, Blanton was hired by the George T. Stagg Distillery to work as a clerk in the office. With time, he eventually worked in every department of the distillery, with hands-on experience learned about every aspect of the whiskey-making operation. Blanton was finally promoted to president of the distillery in 1921, at the age of 40, officially putting him in charge of the entire process. During his 55-year career as an employee of the George T. Stagg Distillery, Blanton not only guided the distillery through some of the toughest events of the 20th century, but also put the distillery in a position to succeed and thrive. During Prohibition, which lasted from 1920 to 1933, Blanton secured one of 6 medicinal whiskey licenses from the government, allowing them to continue production when almost all of the distilleries in the United States were shut down or closed. When Prohibition ended, the country was still trapped in the depths of the Great Depression, and the distillery continued to remain open and operating. In 1937, the Kentucky River overflowed and flooded the distillery, but under Blanton's direction, the distillery restored normal operations within 24 hours of the receding floodwater. Finally, during the Second World War, the distillery suspended bourbon production and produced industry-grade alcohol for the military and the war effort. Colonel Albert B. Blanton retired from the distillery in 1952 and passed away in 1959. He is remembered and honored as a Kentucky legend and a hero of the bourbon industry, credited with bringing bourbon production into the modern era. A statue of Blanton stands outside the present-day Buffalo Trace Distillery, and I'm going to read an inscription that is at the bottom of the statue. Loved and respected, master distiller and true Kentucky gentleman, he dedicated 55 years of his life to the service of his community and his company. That he inspired leadership may live in the minds of those with whom he lived and of those who follow. This memorial is erected with gratitude and honor. Just like Colonel E.H. Taylor, Blanton was a Kentucky colonel. The title has no affiliation with military rank, but is instead a recognition of an individual's many accomplishments and contributions to their local community. Next, let's cover the actual product that bears Blanton's name, Blanton's Single Barrel Bourbon. Blanton's was created by then Master Distiller Elmer T. Lee in 1984 and is credited with being the first single barrel bourbon commercially available to the public. Lee was tasked with creating a high-quality premium new bourbon and drew his inspiration from the many years working under Colonel Albert B. Blanton's, the longtime president of the distillery. It was well known at the distillery that Blanton would occasionally hand-select barrels of aging bourbon from his favorite honey holes for bottling to gift for family, friends, and visiting essential guests. A honey hole is a spot in the rick house or rack house where the perfect temperature combination creates the best aging barrels of bourbon. For Blanton, this was the center selection from Warehouse H, and this is where Elmer T. Lee sourced the barrels for his new bourbon. Rather than combining or mingling the contents of multiple barrels of bourbon together to achieve a consistent flavor profile, Lee chose each barrel, one at a time, for bottling. Since each barrel is slightly different based on a variety of various external factors, as a tribute to Blanton, Lee named his innovation Blanton's, and the single barrel bourbon category was born. Blanton's Single Barrel Bourbon was Elmer T. Lee's final contribution to the distillery and the bourbon world before his retirement. This brand is now a staple for bourbon enthusiasts, credited with driving bourbon's comeback into popularity and creating a modern bourbon renaissance. Blanton's Single Barrel Bourbon is made using Buffalo Trace's High Rye Bourbon Mash Bill, often referred to as Mash Bill Number 2. The whiskey is sourced exclusively from the middle section or center cut of the rack house known as Warehouse H. Following the end of Prohibition in 1933, the distillery ramped up their bourbon production and quickly realized they did not have enough rack houses to house all the freshly filled barrels. To solve this problem, Colonel Albert B. Blanton quickly built a rack house out of metal, as opposed to brick or wood, to house all the new barrels. It didn't take long for him to realize that the inside of this unique metal rack house was closer to the actual temperature outside than the other rack houses. Since the metal walls lack any insulation, the aging barrels inside are exposed to Kentucky's significant shifts in temperature and humidity. This effect is fully captured in the whiskey's interaction with the oak. Still, to this day, every drop of Blanton's Single Barrel Bourbon is drawn exclusively from the central honey holes and metal walls of Warehouse H. Blanton's Single Barrel Bourbon is bottled one barrel at a time at 93 proof or 46.5% ABV. The bottle stoppers for Blanton's have become a famous collector's item since they were first released in 1999. Each one is embossed with a single letter that eventually spells out Blantons, or Blanton's. The stoppers pay a final tribute to Kentucky's long and historic horse racing heritage, which is perhaps the state's most popular activity, outside of bourbon, of course. In addition to Blanton's Single Barrel Bourbon, there's a few other expressions under the Blanton's brand. They're even more challenging to find than regular Blanton's itself. Some of them were originally duty-free only items available in airports, but most of them have now been integrated into the mainstream market, even if they're very difficult to find. So the first one is the Blanton's Gold Edition. This is Blanton's bottled at 103 proof or 51.5% ABV. The next expression is Blanton's Straight from the Barrel. This expression is non-chill filtered and bottled at cask strength. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video enjoyable and informative. Please give this video a like and subscribe, and if you would like to support this channel further, please consider becoming a Patreon member. I will have a link below in the description. If you would like to be notified when I have a new article on my website or a new video on this YouTube channel, please consider subscribing to my newsletter. I'll have a link below in the description.